Mrs. Sawicki here. We're going to be doing 2.6 comparing linear equations. So our goal today is to be able to interpret the slope and the y-intercept by looking at different scenarios. We're going to now jump into comparing a table and a graph. And when we're comparing anything, the best strategy to do is to create an equation from the information given, because then it will be easier to look at the slope and the y-intercept, because that's our goal, is really to compare those slopes and y-intercepts. So in this situation, we're comparing rainfall. We're comparing Houston's rainfall for a 3-hour storm and Knoxville's rainfall for a 2-hour storm. So like I just mentioned, the best way to do this is to create an equation. And when we create equations, we want to put them in slope-intercept form, so that y equals mx plus b. So we want to find our slope, and we want to find that y-intercept. So looking at our table, if you can recall how to find slope from a table, right, we pick 2 points out. You can pick any 2 points, and you're going to label them as x1, y1, x2, y2. And we're using our slope formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, and by using that slope formula, we can find our slope from this table. So plugging in y2, which is 7, minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And then simplifying, 7 minus 4 is 3, 1 minus 0 is 1, and so our slope is 3. So I'm going to write m equals 3. So I found my slope, but in order to have an equation, I need a slope and a y-intercept. So we need to find the y-intercept. Sometimes we're lucky enough and the y-intercept's given to us on our table. And if you recall, y-intercepts mean that our x value is 0. So looking at our table, do we have an x value of 0? And we do. It's this first point here. It's saying 0, 4. And so that's your b, that's your y-intercept. 0, 4. Okay, so now that I have my b and my y, my slope, I'm going to plug it into my equation. So my equation is y equals 3x plus 4. Y equals 3x plus 4. And now we're going to do the same thing over here for Knoxville. We're going to create that equation in slope-intercept form, but we're using our graph. And so to find slope from a graph, remember we do rise over run. Rise over run. So I have 2 points given, so I'm going to use those 2 points to find my slope. So I'm going to start by making that triangle going up and going straight over to help me figure out how much I rose up and how much I run out. So looking at my scale, because scale is super important, that's how much you're counting by. Looking at my rise scale, I'm counting by 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my rise is 5. And my run, also looking at your scale, notice it's counting by half. So I went over a half, 1, 1.5, 2. So my run is 2. So my slope is 5 over 2. I then need to identify my b, which is your y-intercept. So looking at your y-axis, where does that line cross your y-axis? And that's here at the origin, which is 0, 0. So my b is 0, 0. 0, 0. And now I can create my equation. So y equals 5 over 2x plus 0. Or I could have just wrote y equals 5 over 2 times x. I don't need to write plus 0. And now let's compare. So answering our questions, where did the rain fall at the faster rate? So looking at the slopes, which one has the higher number? Which one has the faster rate? And that would be Houston, because 3 is higher than 5 over 2. And then it wants us to identify what's the y-intercept of each. So I'm going to label Houston. Y-intercept we already found was 0, 4. And Knoxville had a y-intercept of 0, 0. Right? We already found those both. And then the last is, what does the y-intercept mean? So making sense of it. Well, I know that X is the number of hours that the storm was going on, and Y was total of inches from the rainfall. So even looking at Houston, I have 0.4. So at 0 hours, there was 4 inches. So that means before the storm even started, they had 4 inches of rain. Looking at Knoxville, at 0 hours, they have 0 inches. So that means before the storm started, they had 0 inches of rain. So the y-intercept is telling how much rain we had before the storm started. Each city had before the storm started. So I can go into further detail by saying Houston had 4 inches of rain before the storm started. And I can also go into further detail that Knoxville had 0 inches of rain before the storm started. All right, guys, so that's comparing a table and a graph. We have one more example to do. And now we're going to just compare a word, kind of like a word scenario, to a table. So same idea, we want to create that equation first to make it easier to compare. So Anytime View has a $12 one-time only sign-up fee. So this is your initial value, right? It's the starting cost is $12. It's a one-time payment. And over here it says plus $12 per month. When you hear that word per, hopefully you think of multiplication, which is implying slope. So that's my slope. So my equation is y equals 12x plus 12. Then coming over on this side, using my table, like we did in the previous question, I have to find my slope first. So I'm going to pick 2 points, x1, y1, x2, y2. And using slope formula, I'm going to find my slope. So y2 is 50 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, which would be 50 minus 40 is 10, which would be 10, and then 2 minus 1 is 1. And so that would be 10. So my slope is 10, right? Because we always reduce. The next thing I do need to find is my y-intercept. And y-intercept is when your x is 0. Looking at my table, this one wasn't so friendly. It didn't tell us our y-intercept, so we have to find it. So if we recall from a previous lesson, to find our y-intercept if it's not given, we can just use a point in our slope. So you can pick any point from your table. I'm going to choose the first point, which is 1, 40. And I already found my slope, which is 10. And so what I need to do when I have a point and a slope is I'm going to plug that in to our slope-intercept form. So y equals mx plus b. So this is my x, and this is my y. So y, I'm going to put 40 equals my m, which is 10, right? So I'm just plugging in what I know. X is 1, and then plus b because I'm trying to find my y-intercept. And then simplifying. 40 equals 10 times 1 plus b. And then to get b by itself, I subtract 10. So 30 equals b. So my b is 30. So now I have my slope and my y-intercept, and I can create my equation. Y equals 10x plus 30. And now we can compare. So saying which company charges at a greater rate. So the greater rate, right, we're looking for the higher slope. We have a slope of 12 and a slope of 10. So for sure this one's higher. So Anytime View. Then over here, which company has the higher initial value? So remember, initial value is your b, it's that starting point. So my b is 12 and my b is 30. 30 is higher. So that means that this one has a higher initial start. So 247 Stream is the name of that company, and that one has a higher initial value. All right, so I know that was a lot of different ways to find and compare, right? We talked about just kind of taking a word problem compared to a table to a graph, and we also looked at equation to equation. So keeping all of those skills in mind as you're working through it on your homework. You guys did a great job. Have a great rest of your day.